The moment that shattered my marriage wasn't a lipstick stain on a collar or a late-night confession. It was a single text message glowing on a locked screen that confirmed what my heart already knew. I'm Harper Lewis, 34, living in Seattle where I work as the chief financial officer at a high-end interior design firm. For 11 years, I was with Mason, my college sweetheart, my husband of 6 years, the man I once believed was my forever. But sometimes the beginning of the end isn't some earth-shattering betrayal or explosive argument. Sometimes it's as quiet as a text preview lighting up a phone screen at 6:17 a.m. on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday, the text that changed everything. That morning, I rose before Mason as usual. While brushing my teeth, his iPhone illuminated on the bathroom counter. A message appeared from someone I'd never heard of. Can't wait for the weekend. The cabin, wine, and that pink lace set. I'm counting the hours. I froze, toothbrush suspended, midair, minty foam dissolving in my mouth as my bare feet rooted to the cold tile floor. Behind the frosted glass door, water cascaded down my husband's back as he showered, preparing for work like it was just another day. For him, it was. For me, everything had just imploded. What hit me hardest wasn't shock. It was the sick feeling of confirmation. The puzzle pieces I'd been refusing to acknowledge suddenly locked into place. The business trips that multiplied, the new password on his laptop, the way he now brought his phone into the shower, and those eyes that once looked at me with warmth now glancing past me like I was wallpaper he'd grown bored with. I'd spent months telling myself, "Don't be paranoid, Harper. Every marriage gets tired after a decade. Don't make a scene over a look." But standing there, my reflection in the mirror seemed to whisper back, "Stop being stupid." I finished my routine with mechanical precision, washing my face, drying, my hands applying makeup. My fingers didn't tremble. Instead, I felt strangely hollow, as if I'd stepped outside my body and was watching someone else's life unravel. When I emerged from the bathroom, Mason stood before our bedroom mirror, adjusting his tie. He smiled at me. That same smile that once made my heart flutter but now made my stomach turn. "This weekend I have a client seminar in Portland," he said, straightening his collar. "I'll be home late Sunday." I nodded, my voice flat. "Don't forget to bring a thick coat. It gets cold at night there." I didn't mention the text. I didn't ask who was counting the hours. I wouldn't interrupt the carefully scripted performance he'd invested so much in perfecting, because in my mind, something else was taking shape, and I wouldn't say a word until it was ready. The investigation Mason always slept like the dead. After his Thursday tennis matches and 2 whiskeys. I knew this as well as I knew his phone's security pattern. Right index finger. That night, once his breathing had deepened and the scent of whiskey and shampoo hung in the air, I quietly took his phone. With gentle precision, I pressed his finger to the sensor. Click. The screen illuminated, revealing a world my husband had been living in parallel to ours. Her name was Claire Donovan, not some naive 20-something, but a 38-year-old medical device sales rep living in Tacoma. And more importantly, she was married. Her husband's name appeared in an older message. "Tyler will be in San Jose all week. The cabin's all ours. Tyler Donovan." A quick Google search revealed his LinkedIn profile. 41-year-old high-end residential architect specializing in sustainable spaces, with his own firm in Bellevue. His profile picture showed a tall man with light stubble and kind eyes that looked tired around the edges. I didn't sleep that night. Each message I read felt like another knife slicing through the tapestry of memories I'd built with Mason. Every night, I'd sat alone reviewing files with only the dishwasher humming for company. He'd been crafting elaborate lies about training sessions and client meetings. The alliance. The next morning, I sat at my computer, drafting and deleting the same message 15 times before finally hitting send. "Hi, Tyler. This is Harper Lewis. I believe my husband Mason Lewis and your wife Claire Donovan are having an affair. If you're open to a conversation, I can share evidence. My number is 265-573-21XX. My palms slicked with sweat the moment I sent it. 3 hours later, my phone rang. His voice was deep and strangely calm, though I detected the subtle tremor of someone holding themselves together by sheer will. "Is this some kind of joke?" he asked. "I wish it were," I replied, my throat desert dry. I have texts, photos, and their weekend plans at Chelan Lake Cabin. A pause stretched between us. What do you want to do? He finally asked. I gripped the phone tighter and spoke slowly, measuring each word. Would you want to meet them there? With me? Before they uncork the wine or take off their coats? Tyler didn't answer right away. Then a long exhale. Okay, let's meet first. I want to see what you know. The meeting, we agreed to meet Saturday morning at a small cafe in Ellensburg, halfway between Seattle and Chelan. I arrived early, choosing a corner booth facing the parking lot. It took just one heartbeat to recognize Tyler when he walked in. Tall frame, light brown coat, and a stride that carried the weight of winter. He sat down without small talk. I placed my phone on the table, opened the message thread between Mason and Claire, and handed it to him. With every swipe of his thumb, I watched his hand tighten. When he reached the photo Claire had sent, her toes on the hardwood floor of a cabin, his jaw clenched. I recognize that floor, he said quietly. I designed it. He leaned back, eyes shutting briefly. I thought it was just work, just distance. She never wanted to see a counselor. He opened his eyes, understanding, dawning. Now I know why. After nearly an hour of conversation, Tyler said, I still have a spare key to the cabin. Claire doesn't know I kept it. I nodded. Mason thinks I'm on a business trip in Spokane this weekend. He has no idea I'm anywhere near here. Then we'll get there first, he said, looking directly into my eyes. No yelling, no drama. Just let them see us and witness the truth. I tightened my grip on my coffee mug and nodded. Our plan formed from the shattered pieces inside both of us. The betrayed, planning not a violent confrontation, but something far more devastating. The simple, undeniable presence of truth. The cabin, we agreed to meet again Sunday morning at the cabin. They were scheduled to arrive at 6 p.m. By 10 a.m. Sunday, I was pulling up to the wooden cabin nestled among pine trees along Lake Chelan. The air was crisp, everything clearer in the morning light. The truth, the pain, and the plan we were about to execute. Tyler was already there, his silver car dusted with pollen near the steps. Inside, he stood holding a mug of coffee, eyes fixed on the still water of the lake. Did you sleep? He asked, his voice low. I'm not sure. Maybe I closed my eyes for a few hours, I replied, setting my bag on a wooden chair. You? No, he answered. But I'm used to sleepless nights. Architects work best in silence. We sat quietly for several minutes, two strangers bound by betrayal, silently sorting through the wreckage inside. The last time I was in this cabin was 3 years ago, I finally said. Mason and I came here after one of his long business trips. This is where I lost our first baby. Tyler looked over, his eyes softening. Claire wanted kids too. After 2 failed tests, she stopped bringing it up. I thought it was grief. His voice hardened slightly. Turns out she had other distractions. We didn't cry. There was only the steady hum of the electric heater and wind brushing past the trees. You think we're going too far? I asked, though I already knew the answer. No, Tyler said firmly. If this were revenge, maybe. But this is about bringing them face to face with reality. Like an unexpected therapy session, we began setting up the space, not as a trap but as a staging of truth. I wiped down the long wooden table where Claire and Mason often planned their work weekends. Tyler brought in a bottle of red wine from his car, Claire's favorite. I set out 4 crystal glasses, the kind Mason always packed as part of his refined taste ritual. We arranged 2 chairs facing away from the front door so they'd have no choice but to face us as they entered. The lights were adjusted to a warm amber, not too bright to provoke tension, but clear enough to catch every expression. How do you think they'll react? I asked, scanning the room like we'd just finished staging a play. Tyler shook his head. Claire will cry. Mason? I'm not sure. Maybe anger, maybe begging, but I guarantee he's not ready for the fact that both of us know everything. We spent the afternoon learning about each other, not just as the betrayed, but as people. I told Tyler about all the times Mason skipped family gatherings claiming client emergencies, about the Uber receipts I'd seen that originated from a neighborhood 40 minutes from his office. Tyler shared how he once caught Claire smiling at her phone, only to snap it shut the moment he walked in. "I knew something was off," he said, "but I chose to trust her until you messaged me." Outside, the sky turned gray. The clock read 4:12 p.m. "Less than 2 hours," I said, adjusting the last glass. "Are you scared?" Tyler asked. "I'm not afraid." "Of the truth," I replied. "I'm only afraid I might forgive the unforgivable." He looked at me for a moment, then nodded. "I'll remember that." We stepped onto the porch, standing together as the stillness of the lake made time feel suspended. The confrontation, 57 p.m. The air inside the cabin felt tight, strung like a wire ready to snap. Tyler and I sat silently in the living room facing the entrance. 2 wine glasses rested on the table beside the bottle of red Claire once called the only thing that makes a weekend feel special. On the armchair across from us sat a thick envelope filled with everything we needed: printed messages, screenshots, credit card statements, and a voice recording of Mason's assistant casually confirming Mason had no meetings in Portland. We heard the crunch of tires on gravel. Tyler looked at me. I said nothing, just nodded. A black SUV pulled up. Mason stepped out first, leather jacket on, holding a suitcase and a gift bag. Claire followed, carrying a bouquet of pale pink tulips. They were laughing, carefree, like they were arriving at some honeymoon retreat. The door opened. Claire entered first, her smile freezing instantly. Mason bumped into her back, then looked up just in time for our eyes to meet. Mason dropped the gift bag. Inside was a bottle of champagne. It rolled across the hardwood floor and shattered. The strong smell of alcohol filled the room. Claire's mouth fell open, the flowers slipping from her hands, petals scattering wildly across the floor. A visual metaphor of what had just happened, an illusion blown apart. "Welcome to your weekend getaway," I said, my voice light as a breeze. "We've prepared wine, chairs, and the truth." Mason stood frozen, lips pressed tight. Claire stepped back, her eyes darting to Tyler for help. "Harper, it's not what you think?" Mason began. "It's not." I tilted my head. "Then what about the texts about the cabin, the wine receipts, the Uber confirmations to her neighborhood? Are those not what I think either?" Tyler stood. "And what about me, Claire? You said you were going to a seminar with a female coworker. You even texted 'Good night, miss you' before turning off your phone. Was I imagining that too?" Claire broke down, covering her face. "Tyler, please don't." "Don't what?" he asked, his voice steely. "Don't stand here and face you? Don't hear the truth? Don't watch my wife cheating in the very house I designed with my own hands?" I stood and took the envelope from the chair, placing it on the table. "I didn't come here empty-handed," I said, my voice steady. "I spent the last 48 hours gathering everything. Call history, messages, photos from the company wedding you both attended. The one Mason told me was just with the guys." Claire turned pale. Mason grabbed the envelope, flipped through a few pages, then threw it down after only seconds, his eyes bloodshot. "You were spying on me." I looked at him directly. "I was verifying the truth. Because I'd been suspicious for too long, and because you were so careful, I had to be." Claire collapsed into a chair, hair disheveled, tears running down her cheeks. Tyler didn't move toward her. He turned away, staring out the window like he needed air. "Claire, how long?" he asked, still not looking at her. 7 months, she whispered. I felt a tight knot in my chest. Mason clenched his hands, stepping toward me. "Harper, I was wrong, but that doesn't mean I stopped loving you." I stepped back. "If the love you're talking about is the kind that brings another woman to the same place where I lost our child, then you can keep it." The room fell into silence. I looked at Mason one last time. "You can choose to leave now or sit and hear this through. But if you think there's any chance for forgiveness, then you've completely misunderstood who I am." Tyler looked at Claire, then turned to me. "I need some air." I nodded. "So do I." We stepped out onto the porch, leaving behind two people breaking apart in the ruins of their lies. Outside, Lake Chelan was still calm, but for me, the wind had started to rise, the truth revealed. When we returned to the living room, Claire and Mason were still seated, neither looking at the other. The air was thick with things left unsaid. I pulled a chair across from Mason. Tyler sat beside me, staring straight at Claire. No one spoke. Not until I placed a second folder on the table did the atmosphere begin to shift. Mason, I said, eyes fixed on him, have you ever told Claire why we've kept separate finances for the past 6 years? He stiffened. Harper, I'll tell her. I cut him off. Claire, maybe you didn't know, but Mason once racked up over $42,000 in gambling debt back in 2015. His parents quietly paid it off to avoid damaging his career. After that, I had to keep separate accounts. Not because of distrust, but because I saw firsthand how much he could hide. Claire turned to Mason, stunned. You never told me that. Because it has nothing to do with what's happening today. Mason snapped. Doesn't it? I tilted my head, eyes locked on him. You cheated on me and tried to justify it by saying I was too busy, too cold. But you forgot to tell your mistress that I've been the one carrying the financial load, paying this cabin's mortgage every month while you were lying and playing cards with your old friends in Tacoma. Mason lowered his head, saying nothing. Tyler now turned to Claire. And you told me the bank delayed the roof repair loan. But the truth is you transferred nearly $10,000 to a rehab center in Spokane. The recipient, Jackson Donovan. That's your brother, right? Claire looked overwhelmed, her face pale. I didn't want you to worry. No, Tyler said, voice steady but cold. You didn't want to share the truth. You've been living 2 lives. One with me, one with Mason. And the worst part is, both were built on secrets. The room fell silent. I nodded slightly, then said, This is the only thing you two have in common. You've never been honest with either of us, and even with each other. It's just polished versions of yourselves. Claire burst into tears. I never meant for it to go this far. But you let it, I replied. I don't know what hurts more. Being betrayed or realizing the person who betrayed you doesn't even have the courage to admit they were wrong. Mason looked at me, eyes red. I'm sorry, Harper. Truly sorry. I looked back at him and said calmly, Sorry doesn't change the truth. And love, if it ever existed, can't save a marriage that's rotted from the roots. Tyler stood up, no longer angry, just exhausted. Claire, he said, do you know what hurts the most? It's that you never once considered telling me the truth. That you thought I wasn't worthy of being trusted with what you were carrying. Claire said nothing, her face drenched in tears. I stood as well. I didn't come here to get love back. I came here to reclaim the truth. I looked at both of them. And the truth is, Mason, you don't love me. You love the validation of being admired. Claire, you don't love Tyler. You love the feeling of escaping a life you didn't have the courage to face. I looked at both of them one last time, then said slowly, Love isn't enough. Trust, respect, and honesty are the foundation of any real relationship. Without those, love is just a beautiful illusion. The unexpected twist. Just as I finished, Claire suddenly stood, her hand gripping the edge of the chair. Her eyes were red, not just with shame, but something else, a mix of fear and confusion. There's something I haven't said, she said, voice shaking. Tyler turned to her, brow furrowed. Claire swallowed hard, her eyes briefly flicking to Mason, then landing on me. I am pregnant. The living room went completely still. The ticking of the wooden wall clock echoed loudly, each second slicing through the air. Mason jumped up. What? What did you say? Claire nodded, lips trembling. I know it's not the right time, but I found out just last week. I was going to tell Mason this weekend at the cabin, but Tyler stood frozen, his voice barely above a whisper. Is the baby mine? Claire turned to him, eyes glistening. Yes, I'm sure. Mason and I always used protection. I went numb for a few seconds. My mind went blank, then quickly flooded with a storm of emotions. No one had prepared for this. No one. expected that a confrontation would be overturned by the arrival of an unborn life. Mason stared at Claire wide-eyed. "You're saying you're pregnant with his child. Don't call it his," Claire snapped, showing the first hint of composure since she entered. "I was wrong to cheat, but at least I never lied to you about how I felt." Tyler turned away, fists clenched. I looked at Mason. He couldn't speak. His furious expression shifted to something unrecognizable: shock, humiliation, or just complete emptiness. The resolution. I took a deep breath and stood. "Looks like we've all had enough for today," I said, my eyes still locked on Mason. "And since everything is out in the open, I won't drag this out." I opened my bag and pulled out a small folder, placing it on the table next to him. "This is the divorce petition and all the financial documentation I've prepared. I've transferred our joint assets into a separate account. Legally, everything's been verified by my attorney. I have nothing to hide." Mason still didn't respond. "You can review it or refuse to sign it right now, but I'm not changing my decision." Claire sat back down, instinctively holding her stomach. Tyler turned to her, voice low but controlled. "I'll need time to process all of this. But if you're keeping the baby, I'll take responsibility. The child isn't at fault." Claire nodded, choking back tears. "I know. And thank you for still being able to say that." I looked at them both, then turned to Mason. "I don't know if you still have something to say, but if you do, now's the time." He raised his head, eyes red and weary. "Harper, all of this, it's not worth ending everything over. We had so many good things." "You're right," I nodded. "We had so many good things. But the fact that you chose to trade it all away for some vague emotional thrill with someone who's not even honest with her own husband means I have to protect the rest of my life." Tyler stood, polite but firm. "I'll head to the car, Harper. If you need anything after this, call me. I think we still have a few conversations left to finish." I nodded, grateful for his calm presence. Claire stepped toward me, hesitant. "I know. I have no right to apologize, but I truly never thought it would go this far." I looked directly at her, my eyes no longer angry, just clear. "The most dangerous people aren't the obviously bad ones. They're the ones who keep telling themselves they're good even while they're lying." She froze for a moment, then turned away. I picked up the folder, pulled a pen from my coat pocket, and signed the bottom left corner of each page. When I put the pen down, I felt lighter than I had in years. Lighter because I no longer had to hold together a marriage that had already rotted. Lighter because I no longer had to pretend to trust someone who didn't deserve it. I looked up at Mason, the man who had once been my entire youth, the dream of a family I used to believe in. "Good luck," I said. "You're going to need more than that." The aftermath. Tyler and I left the cabin around 9 p.m. Inside, Mason sat motionless in his chair, and Claire curled in the corner of the room, holding her stomach like the only thing left to cling to was the life growing inside her. No one saw us out. No one needed to. We walked in silence, the crunch of dried leaves underfoot reminding us that a chapter had officially closed. Tyler opened the car door for me, then got into the driver's seat. Before starting the engine, he glanced over and asked softly, "Do you want to eat something? I know a little place in downtown Chelan that stays open late. Nothing fancy, but their chicken soup's pretty decent." I laughed, a hoarse, unexpected laugh, but a real one. "Yeah, let's eat. I'm starving." We sat side by side in a small diner, the warm yellow light casting a gentle glow over the old wooden table. Neither of us tried to analyze what had just happened. Instead, we talked about quieter things, like how Tyler once considered quitting architecture to go to pastry school, or how I had dreamed of opening a bookstore cafe in Santa Barbara, but let it go after Mason called the idea unrealistic. After dinner, we said goodbye with a light handshake and a silent nod. We didn't become lovers, but that night, I knew I had gained something even more grounding. A friend, someone who had walked with me through the darkest night. 6 months later, stand on the balcony of my small beach house in Port Townsend, holding a cup of hot tea, watching waves crash against the shore. The divorce was finalized in less than 2 months thanks to my meticulous preparation, documents, evidence, and clearly defined assets. Mason didn't fight it, maybe because he knew the longer it dragged out, the more he stood to lose. I received the majority of the assets, including a one-time buyout for the old cabin, which I later sold back to Mason. I didn't need to keep a place filled with ghosts. Mason lost his promotion opportunity at the financial firm. His boss, BC, a strict but fair woman, found out about what happened through an internal company event. No one said anything officially, but gradually he was removed from big projects. From the next executive director, he became the guy overseeing Team B temporarily. Claire gave birth last week. Tyler texted me, "Baby's here. Healthy. A girl." Emotions are all over the place, but we're trying. Attached was a photo, a tiny hand wrapped around Claire's finger, and Tyler looking into the camera with a softness I'd never seen before. I don't know if they got back together as a couple, but clearly they're learning how to be honest with themselves and each other, even if late. As for me, I live alone in a new house by the sea. It's not far from Seattle, but peaceful enough that I can hear the wind every morning. I changed jobs. No longer a CFO, but a freelance financial advisor working on my own schedule. No more packed meetings, no more midnight email chains. I've learned how to unplug, how to rest, how to breathe. Tyler and I still keep in touch. Not often, but consistently. Sometimes it's a quick happy Thanksgiving. Sometimes it's just, saw a little French-style cabin in Oregon. Made me think of you. Beautiful. And sometimes it's a 15-minute call just to ask, "Are you doing okay?" I don't need anything more. We walked through one of the longest nights of our lives together, and even though neither of us says it, I know we're friends. A kind of friendship that needs no labels, just a look to understand each other. One early morning in March, just as the sun rose over the distant pine trees, I woke up earlier than usual, not because of an alarm clock, not for a meeting or a packed schedule. Simply because I wanted to enjoy the early moments of the day that I had missed for years. The light streamed through the glass windows, spilling across the living room of my small home on the bay. The space was bathed in a soft golden hue, reflecting off the teacup in my hand, making everything feel strangely clear. I sat down in my familiar armchair, draped a light knit blanket over my legs, and gazed out at the sea gently lapping in the distance. My heart no longer felt heavy. And most importantly, I no longer felt like the woman left behind. I had divorced and started a new life. Mason had once been a significant part of my world, but he wasn't the destination. He came into my life to teach me an expensive lesson, to wake me up and help me realize that trust should never be given to someone who doesn't know how to protect it. Love doesn't last when honesty is missing, and blind sacrifice only makes us forget our own worth. For years, I tried to be a good wife, successful at work, gentle in conversations, forgiving of flaws. But what did I get in return? A marriage filled with betrayal? A husband who no longer looked at me like a partner, but like someone planning his escape without being caught? Did it hurt? Of course. But the pain no longer drowned me. It had brought me back to shore. I had found myself more than ever before. I was no longer the woman sitting alone in the car, silently crying after realizing her husband changed his password. No longer blaming herself. Maybe I wasn't soft enough when he avoided holding me at night. No longer clutching a coffee mug each morning just to hear his words while feeling completely numb inside. I am steady now, clear, alert, and strong. Enough to walk away from anyone who no longer deserves a place in my life. I remember the last time I saw Mason, at a financial charity event in Seattle. He stood across the room with a glass of wine, watching me from a distance. He looked different, thinner, quieter. As I walked past him, he softly called, "Harper." I turned. "Hello." "You look well," he said, hesitating. "I am well." I nodded. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I smiled. "I know, but you don't have to say it, because that's the past. And I've chosen to live in the present." He nodded and stepped back. For the first time, I saw him as small. Every morning in my new home, I open all the windows to let the sunlight in. I keep pots of lavender along the porch and grow herbs just outside the kitchen. I started picking up what I once abandoned, an unfinished manuscript, a few pages of journaling, a letter to my 25-year-old self, naive but full of dreams. I began offering financial counseling for divorced women, not as a cold expert spouting numbers, but as someone who has lived it, who understands the fear and loss that come with starting over. They trust me, and I know why. Because I don't just speak with reason, but with a heart that's been broken and carefully rebuilt. Tyler still keeps in touch. These days, he's busy with his baby, but once in a while, he sends a message. Nora rolled over today. Her smile looks just like Claire's. I'm happy for them, not because they erased the pain, but because they learned how to face it and heal together. As for me, I'm not looking for new love. I'm not rushing into a relationship just to fill a void. I'm learning to love myself first, something I had forgotten for years. One weekend afternoon, I drove along the coastal road, playing an old playlist Mason used to call Too Sentimental. The music filled the car. Dog Days Are Over by Florence Plows the Machine. I smiled as the wind swept through my hair, not because the past had disappeared, but because I'd gone far enough from it to look back without hurting. I used to think losing someone you love was the end. But it's not. It's just the end of something that no longer served you, so you can begin something better. And if someone were to ask me now, Harper, do you regret anything? I would answer without hesitation, I don't. Because some people come into our lives not to stay, but to teach us how to leave at the right time. My story isn't a tragedy. It's a journey of rebirth. From a betrayed wife, I've learned to stand, back up, to heal, and to love myself again. I no longer resent the past, nor seek revenge. Instead, I choose peace and a life I own. Every morning in my new home is a reminder. Sometimes loss clears the way for something better, and I'm grateful I had the courage to walk away when it mattered most. What do you think of Harper's journey? If it were you, would you forgive or walk away like she did? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories about love, betrayal, and finding yourself again.